Warning, sensitive subject. Warning, sensitive subject. As a content creator, I assume a very real responsibility. This entirety, an entity. This platform is essentially a collective voice, and yet not all who participate do it for the better good. It is a very real thing to step out on faith, regardless of consequence, regardless of sensibility, or just senses, your taste, smell, touch, hear, and taste. This sensibility, this sensual tract, attracts things to you, and attraction is both a frontal and a cerebral thing, or a very commercial and animal thing. It is a thing that exists regardless of one's existence in it. Warning, sensitive subject. Warning, sensitive subject. Good morning on this June 24th, 2022. The time is 10:30 a.m. and welcome to Early in the AM with Isha. I'm not feeling too good today, so my voice is going to be very melancholy, very low. I want to talk immediately about the overturn of the Roe versus Wade decision and my immediate feelings that roared up so fast that I just laid down. For me, this is all about control of choice. There's a certain dynamic between man and woman where submission and control are always in contention with each other. Certain elements of the feminine nature that man always has to have their hand on, has to have control of in any sense. I mean, as far back as history, it was the woman as long as she was in the home, as long as she was barefoot and pregnant, as long as she was taking care of the kids, and the essence that is her was only for the husband's eyes only. The whole control, and then, women's liberal movement, freedom movement for their thinking, their spirit, their job profession, leaving the home, going out to the world, making professionals out of themselves, success stories out of themselves, CEO out of themselves. And that became, to me, it became free. It was okay as long as man's hand was on the other aspect of femininity. Meaning maybe homosexuality or transgender or LGBT. As long as they had their hand on control of something, the other thing could be free. It's almost, the turning of a wheel. And it's all parts, we represent all parts of the wheel. Maybe our position on the wheel we may not favor, but we're still a part of the wheel regardless. And it seems sometimes, we take that left turn, we take that right turn, and many of us are so happy for the change that we forget that the wheel pulls itself back into formation. And a lot of times, old things that we assume are free get pulled back into contest. And all of a sudden, the powerful patriarch, the patriarchal force has to put that hand back down on something. They release one thing to be free, but it seems like it has to revert back to put control down on something. Something has to go back down for something else to go up. It feels that way. Only because I've been a driver for 20 years. I know what it's like, professionally being a commercial driver, to turn a large thing. And never to forget that the wheels, they have to realign back to, that 10-2, that starting place. And putting their hands on abortion, on choice. It just seems like that old patriarchal, that woman in that non-sexual nature has to stand once more. Has to stand tall once more. This celebratory female has to stand with this transgender roaring sexual machine that is taking over all of everything. This sexual freedom has to have a contender. It can't be the gorgeous, free, powerful woman who's liberal and it can express themselves to be free and be lesbian. It has to be the original strong female mother at home that believes everything the Bible says and judges sexuality and judges sins and lives by the book and is chastised in the manner of marriage. They want this female to stand up now and say, this is my right, this is who I am. But then again, before I push this envelope to the point where we're getting paper cuts under our fingernails in the most worst of places, this is just an image I'm portraying here. This is just what the feelings, the picture the feelings portray. I'm sure there's much of a backing to it. There's much of a stance on women taking a deeper control of themselves, for pushing their security and their safety in their ultimate hands and in an ultimate position of what determines who controls their body and their choices. I'm sure that is much, much more in the streets in the now than the image I'm telling you about. But those are the images that come up that sparks the anger, that challenge you to speak up and say something about it. You know, I have a way about celibacy. I feel a certain way about it, especially for destructive women like myself. I can be very destructive sexually because I'm not I'm not a confronter. I don't really confront and read and challenge like I should. So I take my anger, my frustration, and I channel it somewhere. And my mistake is pointing it there. So my reason for celibacy was much more safety guided than, it's my personal choice because of marriage. Marriage wasn't even in the cards. I wasn't even thinking about marriage at the time. And how do I feel now about marriage, about having a celebratory marriage? Marrying someone who may be with a woman who we may not have sex frequently. And pushing past that subject, back to what we were speaking about before, that freedom of choice being challenged. I want to be in a relationship and possibly have the choice to terminate pregnancy. Not even the pregnancy, it's just my choice. Why can't I have my choice? Why would you rewind or turn back those clocks in such a way? In the same hand, I was watching a YouTuber named Peach McIntyre. My mom and I watch her, she's out of the South, out of Florida. She has 6 kids. She's, she's come from, rags, and she's a 6-figure content creator in less than a year. Like, she's almost literally an overnight. But it's not overnight, but in our standards, it's, really close to it. Maybe over the weekend success story. And her life, she sets up her life in a way where the dynamic plays out for currency. And she threw herself there where I understand where you make choices before your feelings or your conscious mind can dictate otherwise. And I've lived that life for a long time. Like, it's like you're going to get your ears pierced or your nose pierced, and it hurts, and you don't want to do it, but you tell them, hurry up and do it before I change my mind. That's how she almost lives her life. Like, she lives it on impulse. And then all the backfires, all the repressed feelings, she lets that play out in front of the camera no matter how it dictates. And she's in a position where she's at the mercy of her, her childhood sweetheart or her high school sweetheart, and her feelings for being an entrepreneur versus the expectations of the public, which is, you can't teach the sway of the world to anyone, how it bends with you or bends away from you, the influence it has on your psyche. You can't dictate to them how you want them to feel towards you. And not caring makes the thing more inflamed, more roaring. It has to be a constant care in your reflection, no matter if it's the devil himself or God in the flesh. It has to be a constant care, unwavering. And that takes something out of you that purports impossibility, insanity, insaneness in the same breath. If I could give Peach any advice, if she ever heard this podcast, I would tell her not necessarily to ignore the people that hate her, but learn the sway and pushes of their voices. I mean, a lot of times it can feel almost intimidating to let someone hate on you to your face, where it feels like they got their finger in your face and they're trying to use and abuse you. I've been there. It's just that I'm a very kind person, almost to a fault. I'm kind to a fault, and I absorb anger way too. I have a blessing in absorbing anger or bouncing off of anger. It's almost child's play. And a lot of people want that. They see something in it where, oh my God, I want how you do it. I want to walk in your shoes and do it like you do it. I'm almost gonna hurt you to figure out your secrets. Almost in a way. And letting them in, no matter how destructive it is the only way to see your own faults in the making. Because a lot of times with me, in stopping my sexual nature, I saw the flaws in myself, the faults in myself. Now, I'm going to reveal something about myself that happened that I think further deepened my humility and my kind sense nature. This had to be some decades ago. Working for a job, and someone had left their wallet on the vehicle that I was driving, and I didn't immediately return the wallet back to my supervisor. I think I got the thing during my run, and I didn't return it to my employer that day at the end of work. I literally waited till I returned back to work on a Monday, and this person had been calling around and looking for their wallet, and the thing was all kinds of stuff in there. I'm not going to disclose its contents, but I was questioned for possible, fraud. Like they looked at me suspect. Like, why would you hold this person's wallet? Why wouldn't you immediately turn it in? And that nature in me was, why didn't I turn it in? Why was I holding on to this thing? Was I testing myself to see if I was a thief? Why was I challenging myself in such a way? Underlying tones, underlying hands in my life passing by me, questioning me in my present voice in the now, saying, do it, don't do it, do it, don't do it. And me holding this thing, knowing it had no stature in my life. I've never stolen money before. I'm not a thief, but I held on to it. I don't know if I was testing myself or why I thought that maybe holding this thing would change my life in some way. That's kind of what reminds me of what's going on with this Roe versus Wade. People really think that the states holding on to you or being able to tell you whether you can or cannot have kids is going to change your life somehow. Like me holding this thing, knowing it belongs to someone else, that decision wasn't made for us. That was made for its time period. We live in a very, very, very different world now. And perhaps if we just take the entire law system and crumble and overturn the whole thing and reestablish what works for us now, maybe that's the cure for what's really happening. Because we have a lot of our lawmakers from back in the day are passing away, and all these new age thinkers are coming up, and maybe that's what the issue is. I mean, is it going to be an issue if we calm down the sex a little bit and not be so ratchet? Is it going to go to a place to stop the spread of STDs and all kind of sexual diseases that if you want to have sex, you're just going to have to have some type of a toy or something that's safe from doing such a thing? You're going to stop these weirdos from killing and hacking up sex workers and burying them in dumpsters and backyards? Is it okay if you and your 17-year-old boyfriend with your 16-year-old self just not be so rigorous to be about it? And just cuddle each other for a while and say, you know what? Let's just run away from that so we completely have our hands in the law and make our own rules concerning abortion. Because it seems like the more we lean on Roe versus Wade, the more the old day just crumbles into the past. And then that old matriarch type mom that was meant to protect kind of just crumbles in the past too. We're just looking at our grandmas and old pictures like, yeah, this was meant for you. What's the one that's meant for me? Perhaps it could be that. I know I'm overstepping a little bit, but that's what these platforms are for people like me who like to fall off the front of the stage in their performances and hope that the security catches me and pushes me back up there. Because I always think the audience is like a pool, and I can just step off the diving board and just dive into them with my thoughts and my thinking and my feelings, hoping they'll catch me. But a lot of times they don't. They just let me fall on my face, and then, oh, I have to remember not to do that on the next stage. And then I think it's a new stage and a new crowd, and I can try it again. Keep stepping off these diving boards over and over to see exactly where my favor is, my give and take, my push and pull. I guess that's how I feel about it. But yeah, so I thank you for listening, and hopefully we'll get to what we mean and feel about these things as a people. Because we just need to step back at ourselves again. Okay, maybe this law is just way too old for us to contend in such a way. Perhaps we're just way too young, and our new wine is going to bust the hell out of this old ass wine bottle. All right, love. See you when I see you. Talk to you later.